The antique shop's dusty windows and faded sign did little to attract passers-by along the busy city street. But to Martin, the nondescript storefront was a treasure trove waiting to be discovered. Pushing open the creaking door, he breathed in the musty air as his eyes adjusted to the dim lighting inside. He lived for these moments, never knowing what forgotten relics from the past he might uncover. Martin slowly wandered the aisles, scanning the haphazardly arranged shelves and display cases. He paused to examine a silver pocket watch, an ornate music box, and a set of tarnished silverware before a glint of porcelain caught his eye. Nestled on a bottom shelf behind a stack of books was a delicate antique doll. He knelt down and gingerly picked her up. She was about 18 inches tall, with bisque skin, raven hair fashioned in tight Victorian curls, and sage-green glass eyes. Her faded blue velvet dress and lace petticoats looked to be original. "Hello there," Martin murmured. "Aren't you a lovely thing?" The doll's eyes seemed to blink at him as her small rosebud mouth curled into a subtle smile. Martin felt an immediate attachment, sensing the doll had stories to tell if given the chance. He decided then and there that she would be coming home with him. After purchasing the doll, whom he named Lilith, Martin spent the evening fashioning a special shelf for her in his study. He knew just where to place it, so the morning sun would highlight Lilith's porcelain features. "There. Perfect," he said, stepping back to admire his work. The doll stared back at him, and for a moment, Martin thought he saw a spark of satisfaction in her painted green eyes. That night, Martin was awoken from a deep sleep by soft whispers. Still half asleep, he murmured, "Who's there?" The whispers faded away, leaving Martin unsure if he had dreamt them. He rolled over and quickly drifted off again. Over the next week, Martin settled into his normal routine: work, dinner, reading in his study beneath Lilith's watchful gaze. But each night, the whispers returned, always fading away when he startled awake. He couldn't quite make out any words, only an insistent murmuring. One night, instead of fading, the whispers seemed to solidify into a single raspy utterance: "The letter opener." Puzzled, but now convinced he wasn't imagining things, Martin replied, "What do you mean?" Silence followed. The next morning, the meaning became clear. As Martin reviewed his firm's latest financial statements, he realized the lead partner had dramatically over-reported income. Unthinkable amounts had been siphoned away undetected. Glancing at the gold letter opener on his desk, Martin suddenly pocketed it before heading to lunch. That night, the whispers returned. "Well done," they seemed to praise. "The watch next." Martin realized with surprise that he felt no guilt about stealing the letter opener, only a growing sense of confidence and control. He whispered into the darkness, "Yes, the watch next." Over the following days and nights, the cycle continued, each whispered suggestion pushing Martin further. A rare book slipped into his briefcase. The theater cashier shortchanged when buying tickets. An inflated expense report submitted. With each act, the whispers became more insistent, the acts more daring. Martin suspected the true source, but part of him resisted confirmation. He felt increasingly split between his buttoned-up public persona and the simmering confidence growing inside. Late one night, after a particularly assertive string of whispers, Martin could resist no longer. He moved Lilith from her shelf to the desk, positioning her directly facing him. Taking a seat, he switched on the green glass lamp and leaned forward until his eyes locked onto hers. "Have I gone mad, or are you whispering to me?" he asked. For several minutes, only the ticking of the study clock answered him. Then, so softly he had to hold his breath to hear it, Lilith replied, "Clever boy. I knew you would figure it out eventually." The voice was female with a lilting accent Martin couldn't quite place. Trying to hide his shock, he replied, "Who are you?" Lilith's bisque lips curled into a smirk. "I've gone by many names, but you may call me Lilith, darling." She blinked her glass eyes slowly. Martin's mind reeled. He knew he should smash the doll and end this madness, but something in those green eyes pulled him in. He found himself saying, "What do you want from me?" The doll let out a raspy chuckle. "Straight to business, I see." I like that in a man. Let's just say I once walked the streets of this city long ago, but certain figures cut my living days tragically short. Her voice turned icy. With your help, I can settle old scores and regain a foothold in this world. Do this, and riches and power will be yours. Refuse and, well, she raised a porcelain eyebrow menacingly. Martin sat stunned, knowing he stood at a precipice. Lilith represented everything he secretly craved. Danger, intrigue, respect, but at what cost? Sensing his hesitation, Lilith played her final card. I know how they all dismiss you, the sheep in the office, the women who ignore you. Help me, and you will demand their attention. So which will it be? That sealed Martin's decision. He would do what Lilith asked. He gave the doll a subtle nod. Excellent, Lilith purred. Now fetch me that stack of newspapers. We have plans to make. In the following weeks, Martin and Lilith spent nights poring over newspaper archives, tracing the descendants of Lilith's targets. They identified the families that had risen to prominence since her untimely end. Lilith directed Martin to use his knowledge of accounting and access to offices to strike surgical blows. An emergency tax audit here, a license suspension there, minor acts of sabotage and reckoning. At first, Martin felt nervous, constantly looking over his shoulder. But the more damage he inflicted, the more confident and energized he became. His mundane life now had purpose and a growing fanaticism, even if the orders came from a porcelain doll. Newspaper headlines soon told of a phantom saboteur terrorizing the city's elite. The police were baffled by the perpetrator who left no trace. Lilith chided Martin to be more careful, but her painted mouth couldn't hide her glee. Now, for the final act, Lilith finally announced one night. Her eyes gleamed in the lamplight. There is an estate sale at the old Van Houten place tomorrow. Go there and retrieve the pearl necklace in lot 223. It belonged to Agnes Van Houten, the floozy who stole my darling Albert away all those years ago. Bring me those pearls, and my afterlife shall finally know peace. Martin nodded, ready to help Lilith complete her mission. He researched the estate thoroughly, planning his route in and out. Under the cover of night, he easily deactivated the alarm system and located the pearls. As he turned to leave, flashlight beams sliced through the darkness. "Don't move! This is the police!" a voice bellowed. Martin froze, cursing himself for making such a careless mistake. Then he remembered the revolver tucked into his coat pocket. Lilith's most recent idea. Martin weighed his options. He could try to shoot his way out, or he could give up and end Lilith's puppetry of him. Her pull seemed less persuasive outside of the study's four walls, away from her hypnotic green eyes. "Martin, is that you?" a familiar voice called out. Stepping into the light, Martin saw it was Patrick O'Hara, an old college buddy who had joined the city's police force. Martin opened his mouth to respond, but Lilith's raspy voice drowned out his thoughts. "What are you waiting for? Shoot him and escape." His hand twitched toward the revolver. Patrick cautiously approached. "Buddy, I don't know what sort of mess you're mixed up in here, but put the gun down and we'll sort this out." Patrick's calm words cut through Lilith's whispers. Martin realized the monstrous path she had led him down and how close he was to becoming a killer. With deep shame and new resolve, he pulled the revolver from his pocket and tossed it to Patrick. "I give up. This has gone too far," Martin said wearily. Patrick breathed a sigh of relief and escorted Martin outside to the waiting police cars. After providing a full confession, Martin reluctantly told the authorities about Lilith and her role in manipulating him, but he protected her hiding place, unsure what arcane forces she still possessed. At his sentencing, the judge showed leniency given Martin's cooperation and the extenuating supernatural circumstances. After serving 2 years of probation, Martin hoped to move on from his brush with darkness, but Agnes Van Houten's pearls were never recovered. And across town, the antique doll Lilith remained perched on her shelf, biding her time. Her emerald eyes shone with cunning, waiting for the day when she would exert her strings of malevolence to ensnare the next susceptible soul.